Hello, everybody. My name is Caitlin, and I am a nationally qualified bikini competitor. Um, I've been asked to share my story on a few occasions because I'm an athlete with MS, or multiple sclerosis. I don't have this scripted, so I'm just going to wing it and we'll see what happens. Um, when I was 18, I started noticing symptoms in my hands and feet where I was going numb and tingly, kind of like when your feet start to wake up after they fall asleep. And eventually, closer to my 19th birthday, I was completely numb from the waist down. Around that time, my best friend of over 20 years now picked me up from class one day and said, "We're going to emergency." And I was like, okay. And we waited for hours, like 8+ hours in that waiting room, and she didn't complain once. So we finally got in, saw the neurologist on call, and without me knowing, poked me in the leg a few times with a needle. And like I said, I felt nothing. So alarm bells started going off. So I spent the next few weeks in 3+ hour MRIs, CAT scans with the ink injections. And I'll never forget the ink injection because my mom was with me and she was in the waiting room, and they said, "Are you okay with the ink injection?" And I said to them, "Well, what are the side effects?" And he lists a few, like nausea, and then he said, "Well, death is a side effect if it doesn't sit correctly." And so I was like, "Can I ask my mom's opinion?" And I'll never forget this. He asked me if I needed my mommy's opinion. So I hope if you see this video, you treat very scared 19-year-olds with a life-changing diagnosis a little bit more empathetic. And I said, yeah, I do. So my mom, being in the healthcare, talked to her, and she said, "You'll be fine." So I did it, and I've done it quite a few times. I just get really cold on it. And it showed that I had a really big lesion on the top of my spine, and I had lesions in my brain where the average person has a few. I had quite a few. So then, March 4th, 2012, I was sitting in the doctor's office with my mom and dad, and the neurologist just blatantly spit out, "You have MS, and by 25, you'll be in a wheelchair." That is not something that you just spit to a 19-year-old who's going through something very scary. But that's how he said it. And the worst part of that day, I think, was seeing my parents' face, because they were now both going through, what does my child's future look like? She's 19. She's just getting her life started. Did not expect to get emotional because I've told this story a million times. So I remember in the parking lot sobbing into my mom because MS wasn't really studied. There wasn't a lot of research on it. And yeah, it was just one of those things where it was so unknown. And I decided over the next couple of days I was quitting school, moving home, and I know this killed my mom to this day, and you'll see her talk about it in a bit. It still kills her that she was like, "Okay, but you're going to have to get a job and pay room and board, and you're not just going to sit feeling sorry for yourself." I grew up competitively dancing, competitively playing sports, so I'm a very hard worker, and sitting around was just not something that would be good for my mental or physical health. So I was like, well, I can do that in the city. I can go to school, work part-time. And so that's what I did. And that was a huge impact on how my next forever, I guess, went. So then around when I was 20, I got into the gym, I got a trainer, I got on a meal plan. And then a few years later, I was still with the same trainer, and We set a goal that I would do my first bikini competition. So I did that in 2016. Fell in love with the lifestyle. I didn't like how the coaching was handled. So because I thought at the time, this must be how everything's handled, I quit competing, got a different coach, and just fueled properly, kept fueled, did weekly check-ins, was fueled properly for the gym. I wanted to get strong. I wanted to maintain strength, build muscle, etc. Then I met my boyfriend in 2021, and he had just competed in his first bodybuilding show. He's a competitive bodybuilder. And in 2022, he was getting ready to do a second show, and I was like kind of wanting to do one too. And he's like, well, just try one. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do another one, but at least you'll know. Well, of course, I fell in love with it. And then I decided to pursue wellness and did that from 2022. Hired my current coach in 2023. And at the beginning of this year, I switched back into the bikini category just because wellness, if you know the wellness category, those girls' legs are just insanely large. And it's amazing, but it's just not something my body wanted to genetically build. So I'm very grateful for my 4 years pursuing wellness because I ate good, I lifted very heavy, and I was able to put on a massive amount of muscle, which kind of ironic having MS because it's a neurological disorder that deteriorates your muscle. So the fact that I was able to put on so much muscle and keep it while now in the bikini category is something I'm forever grateful for. My current coach, Aaron, he is very passionate about digestion, food choices, inflammation. So all of that has been very impactful in my last 4 years with him. Having MS as an athlete, or as a partner, a daughter, a sibling, is something that's very scary to approach because I remember telling my sisters, and they were both, I guess, my one sister would have been about 16 and the other one would have been about 12. So as they grew up, they started to hear more about it, and they started hearing a lot of negative things that MS can do to people. And it's very scary to have those conversations with your siblings or just in general because, you know, my goal since getting diagnosed for them was to show them that just because you get a diagnosis doesn't mean it defines your life. Just because you're on medication for the rest of your life doesn't mean you're different or doesn't mean it's wrong or, you know, as long as it helps you stay the best that you can be. So being the best role model for them as well. As a daughter, seeing both of my parents, you never forget when you get that diagnosis and your parents are there. And I was so lucky to have my parents there. Seeing their faces because their lives are forever changed. So being able to show up every day and give 100%. And I know in the back of their heads, they're sighing relief because it's one more day that I'm upright. And it's one more day that this disease isn't taking over my body because I'm doing everything in my power to make it as irrelevant as possible. When I met Riley, that was one of the first conversations that I had with him. He already knew I had MS because I had shared it on social media before. You know, Burgers for MS from A&W, those kind of things. I shared it on my Instagram all the time. So he already knew I had it. So I guess I was really scared because I'm like, this is what I was diagnosed with. This is the outcome the doctor gave me. And at the time I was 27 when we met. So I'd already passed the original deadline. But we had that conversation, and I remember being like, you know, I could end up in a wheelchair. I could end up this or that, and these are the side effects of my medication. And he was just very much like, okay, and I've had partners in the past that would be extremely irritated by the medication, the side effects, you know, like they made it more of a them thing. And Riley just made it like, okay, but that doesn't change who you are. And from as soon as I told him, it was immediate like relief, because he's always just pushed me to be the best person I can be and work hard and support me in all of my dreams. And having that supportive partner also has helped me stay as symptom free as possible, because anyone with MS or someone that they love with MS knows stress is not good for MS and can actually trigger a flare-up. So the fact that I have such a supportive partner that keeps my day-to-day as stress-free as possible, I am very fortunate. I have the most supportive family. I have the most supportive partner. I have a very supportive coach. And all of that contributes to the fact that I'm 33. I've never had to touch a wheelchair. And I'm living a life that I was told I wasn't going to be living. So I know I always preface anytime I post about it is that I know not all stories are the same, and I'm very fortunate to be living mine. So I will stop before I keep crying. Thank you all for listening. If there's anything I can leave you with is just because someone tells you your life's supposed to be a certain way doesn't mean it always has to end up that way. I know that's not the outcome for everybody, but don't go down without fighting, because you never know what your life can turn out like, and I'm walking proof of that. I'm very grateful to work with so many clients with so many different things that they're dealing with in their life that I can help them with and help them reach goals that they never thought were possible either. So that is the most fulfilling thing to me, is for someone to say, because of you and because of your help or because of your support, I'm now living a different life than I ever thought was possible, because that's the reality I get to live, and nothing will ever trump that. So I'm going to attach some clips. I've got my mom and my boyfriend's going to answer some questions. And yeah, thank you all for listening. And if there's any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram or comment below. And I'm an open book. I'm just emotional. So I hope this story helped somebody. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Susan. My relation to Caitlin is I'm her mom. My initial thoughts when I heard she had MS, well, it kind of takes everyone, I think, for shock and a little surprise. Your heart sinks as a parent. Your child's crying and wanting to know, wanting us to help them get better, get it gone, take it away. And as a mom, there's nothing we can do to make it better. So it's heartbreaking. All these years later, and it's still heartbreaking that I can't fix it. That was what she needed. She needed tough love. And sometimes you've got to give that tough love out right away because they want to give up. You can't let them give up. There's always a chance for a future. I'm very fortunate. Katie is stubborn as hell. And she basically put her foot down and said, I'm not going to end up in a wheelchair. And her attitude is, Now, maybe one day she might be in a wheelchair. She doesn't know for sure. But like she said, if she does, she's given it 110% to stay out of it. And I'm so proud of her for that. And she does give it more than 110% to stay out of that wheelchair.
What has changed in your perspective in those last 5 years in dealing with that as a partner with of somebody who has MS?
So like in terms of my own perspective, I don't think it really changed for me, but I think it more so is the effect it has on others that aren't directly involved. Yeah, I like to come into it. I was always a very more optimistic person, and I always have the idea behind me of proving people wrong or proving beliefs wrong or anything of that nature if it doesn't really align with what I believe in and the conviction behind myself and you and our driven attitudes and perseverance that we have. So I think with that in mind, I was willing to be kind of by your side there through it all, and to kind of see there's some ups and downs, and the medication had its side effects and stuff like that, but to see the strength in somebody to be able to push through all that and persevere and still chase your goals, and it's not, and like I said already, proving people wrong, proving doctors wrong, proving people who have this conception of what MS is to them, and it's not true. Like it's not, you're not bound by it. You can definitely persevere it.
Yeah.
And I think those are kind of the biggest factors for me, and kind of that's why we're also so good together, because we both kind of have that personality of what we want to accomplish, and we're not going to let things necessarily stand in our way in order to overcome.
What has been the scariest thing to witness? I mean, I've kind of mentioned in my previous video that I've been very lucky not to have any big symptoms over the last decade, but have you experienced anything that's been like a little uneasy or just scary? Or like worrisome that it might be an attack or something?
Like there's always that that thought in your mind, like for example is like you don't deal with heat very well, and that can always kind of push things a little further than necessary, and sometimes there's numbness or balance, or sometimes balance is a little off and so forth. So those thoughts are always there, and we have ran into them, and I think it's just another obstacle to overcome in the end here, right? Yes, it's scary, and I obviously don't want to see anything get any worse. But that's why we're very motivational towards each other. What we're accomplishing and keeping our attitudes high and positive, and not letting those little setbacks here and there really deter our mindset or what we're trying to accomplish, or even like some of the more other effects MS may have on like your muscular system and stuff like that. And yeah, it may be a hindrance, but you can just be able to give that extra effort to overcome it is the biggest thing. And having the heart to do so is tough, but you have it and you've shown it and you're continuing to do so. So with that in mind, I think yes, it's scary, but right now things are going, we can easily overcome it no matter what.
Thank you for being a guest. And yeah, I guess it's a wrap.